All right, welcome back to Just Enough Garage. Hopefully everyone is kind of caught up. We've been trying to jam through some videos. We did the rat rod. I think it turned out well. I mean, you know, it's hard to get everything going. Anyway, as I said, the next video was going to go ahead and be this RS-Capri. This RS-Capri I have owned since 1991. I think I bought it September, October of 91. It was something I bought off a used car lot. Traded in a 77 Honda Civic and some cash. I had this car for a number of years. Like everybody, eventually I got married, had children. I quit driving the car after our second child. In fact, my wife and myself used this car on a honeymoon, and we were looking through some photo albums to get some pictures of when the car was, and what we were. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and put it on some time lapse, unveil it, so to speak. And I'm pretty jazzed about this one. I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, kind of it's licensed and insured. I just haven't driven it this year. Just kind of see how it goes. And I hope everybody's enjoying Rolly. Sometimes he'll sit for us. Sit, Rolly. Sit. Okay. Sit. Anyways, Ravioli, he's 4 years old. He was a rescue dog. We got him when he was about 8 weeks. So his good habits are from us and his bad habits are from me. Anyways, yeah, he likes to go on all the adventures with us, so you'll probably see him more and more. Anyways, let's get rolling on this. Nice job, Mary. Thanks for helping me. We got this cleaned out enough. Let me get this out of here. This is kind of fragile. I'll show you what it is. Hopefully the camera can see. This is the Aladdin Cave of Wonders. You'll see up in the corner let's put it over in front of the Jeep. Jenny, my wife, she does those for the school, the elementary school. She made that all by hand out of the foam like we have up in the corner. Anyways, you'll see in the back corner, she's got a little storage for a bunch of sceneries and stuff. So, it's a shop. We share it. So originally, 1982, these were a high output 302 Ford. This is a second generation Capri. The first generation is the 70s version. They had a V6 rear wheel drive. The third generation was a little convertible Capri, front wheel drive, sideways engine that Ford used. This is your second generation, very similar to the Fox body. Some things that are different on this is this extra flare fender treatment. If you look down the side, the rear and the front have those treatment. Otherwise, they're just about the same in some aspects. All right, welcome back. Actually changed my shirt. Took the dogs to the park. I think Mary's going to add a spot of them running down by the beach. Anyways, I was just now putting the wrench on here, getting ready, and I see that these were loose. So then I say to myself, well, Darian, do you want to just tighten them up and see? But then I recall a few years ago, I tightened them up and they're loose again. So then I'm thinking, well, is there a piece missing? The last time I was this engine was probably 1997 or something. So usually about now I'd have some cute story to tell you, some quip. I can tell you a story about this car. This is boys versus girls story. When I was driving this car, I thought it was cool, you know. V8, 4-speed, come on, what's cooler than that, right? And my wife, she didn't notice the car at all. She noticed me. It was kind of funny because I was like, well, what do you think of my car? Like I was going to try to impress her. I didn't notice that, she says. Yeah. Yeah, see, these are all loose. But there's only 6 of them. We'll pull it off. Then we can look inside and just see how everything is. I know this engine's in good shape. And I've been lucky, you know. I've been lucky to be able to raise a family, have kids, and be able to keep on holding on to these things, you know. And I know the value of some of this stuff has come up. But to me, the value is still just the memories that go with it and such. You know, like I say, I was hoping with the YouTube to get the kids involved more, show them how this works, talk about what parts are parts and what happens with these. You know, it's a little bit redneck. I get that your dad's always out in the shop dinking around on something. But that's who I am. All right. So these 3 little shorties are on the top. And then if I pull the valve, I leave the spark plugs on there. I shouldn't mess up the firing order. And they have this style of bolt on the bottom. And then the spark plug holder snaps into there. Yeah, those are all loose. I guess I should have been more diligent about tightening them more often, maybe. It's really this back corner that's the one that was leaking anyways. Okay. So that's it, 6 bolts. I don't know on the timer, was that 4 minutes, Mary?
5:30.
5:30 with babbling. Oh, these are cork. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they are broken. All right. So I was talking about how clean the engine is. That's clean, but these cork gaskets are just so old. And see, this is the way I do it. Everybody's different. What you want to do is put the silicone on the top if you're going to silicone them for alignment, because then when you go to pull it off and you have to scrape the gasket clear, you're not scraping the stuff into the engine. You can take this away to your workbench. This one coming off pretty good. There will be minimal scraping. All right, Mary, bring the camera around. We'll go inside here. This is a 302. These are the valve rocker arms. Underneath here, I'm not going to start it without the valve cover. It'll spray oil everywhere, but the push rod rides on a lifter, which rides on a cam, which then builds oil pressure up through that tube to the push rod, hits that diverter, The oil then comes down. It'll come through this hole. The oil, then you can see this is sat for, I don't know, last summer, easy. And that oil will then go down over the valve. And then I don't know if you can see right there, Mary, where my finger's pointing. Okay, I don't think we have enough light, but there's a hole there. And that hole then drains back down to the oil pan. So when these are running, all of this oil is riding along. These are non-adjustable. On the small block Chevy stuff, I don't have one open, otherwise I'd show you, but you have to use a feeler gauge. On these Fords, you just tighten that down. There's a rocker arm style that has a big shaft. Those are like your big block Fords have those. I think some Mopar stuff has those. These small block Fords run that. So if you're going to do engine identification, how many times have we played this game, Mary? Engine identification, every car show. And I say to some kids, what is the engine in there? Fords have the distributor up front. Chevys, big blocks and small blocks, have them in the back. Fords have them in the front. Mopars, and I'm not a Mopar guy, but I do know that the big blocks have them in the front and the small blocks have them in the back. Those are your big three, your GM, your Ford, your Chrysler, or Dodge, whatever they want to go by. But anyways, well, let me go ahead. I got my razor blade. You know what? I'll stop babbling and I'll start working. And I got a little bit of blue silicone on here. I don't know if you can see. Anyways, you want to get that out. And if you hold your razor blade like a snowplow, it'll push it right on out. What you want to do is get something like this. You don't want that going into the engine. And you can see originally when it was squished in, see how that rolled in? It's possible if you use too much silicone, just like when you were a kid, too much glue on your Mother's Day project. Next thing you know, that glue is everywhere. And silicone is essentially a glue. ...
Not a lot.
That's right, Mary.
And don't eat it. I wasn't one of the kids to eat it, but
Eat your paste?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ralphie Simpson. Anyways, when I was a kid, I was in the first grade. Mrs. Potts. I don't know if she's still I know she's not a teacher. I mean, come on. But I don't know if she's whatever happened to her. But she had a red velvet dress, and this had to be about 1979. And she called me up to her table there, her little desk, and she says, "Darian, look what your project did. All this glue on here was extra, and now it's all over my dress." And even as a kid, I thought, well, yeah, the glue isn't dry. Why would you pick it up? This isn't my fault. But anyways, I felt bad after that. And that's one of those things that sticks with you. Maybe other people never had those experiences where something that's said to you as a kid, something that happens to you kind of sets your attitude for life. ... Not a lot. That was something I learned, but I didn't learn it that day. Now, see, you can see that dang silicone in there. The old original engine, I still have the numbers matching engine. As far as I know, I haven't checked the numbers. But when they say matching numbers, you would look at your VIN number, and your engine's supposed to have been the engine that came with it from the factory, right? And there's several ways of checking numbers. And you want to have the same vintage if you want a car that you're going to sell to have the most value. If you're driving it, then it doesn't really matter. One time a fella told me years ago, he says, you never turn in your starters or alternators. You take them to a rebuild and you rebuild them because those were matched to the engine. And a replacement one could be from a different month or year or a different production facility. Like, maybe this car was built at a production facility back east. Maybe it was built in California. Maybe it was built wherever. And the casting might just be a little bit different. And his belief was if you stuck with your original piece, then you knew you wouldn't have any trouble. And I've had that experience where I've taken a starter or something, I try to put it on and it doesn't fit right. And you say it's supposed to fit, but sometimes they're just a little bit odd. Yeah. Now, if this is too boring, you'll be seeing it probably fast forwarded through here with some rock and roll music. And anyways, like, comment, subscribe. If you guys like these videos, my friends have been watching these, and this is awesome, And, friends are good friends. They'll tell you the truth. A lot of people don't like the longer videos. I'm okay with them either way. But we've been trying to do some shorts on Friday, release those about different things just because we're trying to get our name out there. Like I say, we're trying to get 4,000 view hours, and we're trying to get, I'm going to have to get a rag, and we're trying to get 1,000 people to subscribe. So you guys go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and just clean this up and get a rag back in there, and then we'll reassemble it. Hey, Mary.
Huh?
What's your favorite part about working in the shop?
Getting yelled at.
When was the last time you didn't hold the flashlight right?
Earlier, but it's because you bumped it and it fell and the magnet was holding it. I didn't get yelled at for that.
No.
You just moved it.
Yeah.
I say yelled at. It's just the classic frustration.
Yeah.
Just something not doing what it's supposed to do.
You were saying earlier you had driven this car one time a few years ago when you first started driving, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm not good at manual transmissions. I feel like it's just because I don't have enough practice at it. If I'm doing it for, a bit, a couple minutes, 10 minutes or so, I'll be all right the rest of the day driving that car. Give me a week later though, back to bad. So I just need to drive them more. And I know that, like, if I drove a manual every day, I'd be fine. But I don't. So.
What do you want to be when you grow up? You want to be a mechanic?
I'm grown. That's what I'm doing right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You were saying that probably a lot of the leaking is, well, for one, they're 30 years old, but cork shrinks over time because it's a natural material. And so a lot of it could be shrinking too, because as I was starting to clean this one up, I was pulling the gasket off, and it came off in 4 pieces. And I said, "Did this start as 4 pieces?" And he said, "Nope." And I went, "All right, then that makes sense." So we got Rolly here barking at the neighbors. It's that time of night.
Yep, he's got to check, make sure everything's good for the evening. Sometimes he'll go out 2 or 3 times in the night just before dark, just to check. Patrol. Paw Patrol is what we call them.
Yeah, we call it Paw Patrols and the Rolly rinse cycle when he licks our dishes before we put them, rinse them and put them in the dishwasher or something.
Yeah, he's a good dog. He takes care of us. All right, let's go ahead and put that on, and then we'll just wrap it up.
Wrap it up?
Wrap it up. You wask away, wrap it. You wask away, wrap it.
It's clean. I got out a little bit of the silicone in the tracks. It doesn't really matter with the gasket we're putting on. Apparently, I'm putting this one on, which now we'll hear the yelling at the mirror.
This is where you were supposed to have paid attention.
Oh, I don't pay attention. It says cover side. Flip it around. This is the cover, right? So
yeah, that would be. I know I've never checked on the other one. Shoot.
Well, I got my glasses on. You're just gonna hope?
If it leaks, I know I did mine wrong. I got a 50-50 chance.
Well, I know I did mine, right? All right, long bolts on top or bottom, you said?
They were on the bottom, so they're right there.
Well, I saw them down here. If you see me making stupid faces, you've seen Darian make them, so you know where I got them. They're thinking faces. All right, let's get my greasy fingers all over the gasket. I wiped them off best I could. All right.
So I should just slip underneath those.
Yeah, now you got to fight with the spark plugs.
I would go in the back, drop it on, and then try to just whatever.
All right, mister. Get the bolt back through it. There we go. Finagle. Why you got it sideways? You realize it goes in this way.
Oh.
In the filmer.
I just ruined it.
I can cut it and flip it, I think. We'll find out.
Yeah, real good. Those are just right. Oh, not this particular engine, but this engine. One time I was cool.
Have the mic.
Oh, clip it on me there.
With my greasy fingers. Oh, shoot. Oh, it's barely hanging on, guys.
Anyways, back in the day, you used to have a magazine, right? Summit magazine was this one. And you would go through there and you would look, and it would just be all the specs of what a cam was. And this was a high output 302. You could order that same cam that the factory used for like $75 or something, right? Or below that stock one, there was these other choices. And if you went for the toppest one, well, then you were like some kind of a dragster. If you went for the middle one, then sometimes you can get a little bit of a hotter engine. And if you looked over into what the power range was, the RPM range, see, most cams for driving on a street, you want 1,500 to like 3,000, 4,000. That's what your torque is. That's where you get going. So if you're doing light to light or you're just kind of cruising around. But then there's cams that are high RPM cams, right? Where they run really rough, blah, 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 and they're shaking themselves to death. But then when you get into the RPM, 3,200, 4,000, the thing will just smooth right out, but then it will run out of power because this engine is only going to have to, $5,000, maybe it'd be about the top end of this. So there's this short window at high RPM. Well, I had chose one of those cams because they were all the same money, and I'm getting more from my money. I put it in, and this thing shook itself silly. In fact, it shook the distributor apart within the first week of having it. I ended up walking maybe 3 miles for a guy gave me a ride. I was working a night shift, so I got off at 2 a.m. and who wants to walk around at 2 a.m. in the morning? You didn't dare go to a house because.
And who's gonna give you a ride at 2 in the morning?
Yeah, this guy that was coming from the same place. He's like, "Oh, you need a ride? I thought that was your car back there." And I'm like, "Okay, weirdo. Yeah, give me a ride." But anyways, he gave me a ride, and then I woke up my wife and my daughter, and let's go get the car because I don't want to leave it on the highway, and then go to bed. And then next thing you know, it's more money and more problems. So, anyways, I ended up changing that cam, and it only had maybe 50 miles on it, and I had it forever on. I threw it away one day because I was like, I'm never going to use that, because the time the engine got into the RPM where it was potentially making its greatest horsepower, shoot, man, you're already going 400 miles an hour. You couldn't drive it, so it was a useless thing. And this one runs good, so.
1 second.
Oh shoot, what do you got?
I'd like to point out that I actually can work and talk at the same time, and I did mine 2/3 faster than you did, looking at the video time count. So I'm young enough I can do both at once still.
Wish I was you. You want to note where those are coming from. When I was a kid, my dad used to bring home stuff for me to take apart just so I could see how it worked. And if you got any boys, like if you're a dad or a mom and you've got younger boys, get some tools, let them take stuff apart. They'll see how it works, it'll get some creativity in them. I'm not against video games, but come on, there's more to life than playing a video game. The float. This has 2 floats. If you look right there, that's the needle, and as the fuel level comes up, that'll turn off the fuel. There's a little rubber tip needle in there, and you want to make sure both of those are working. In this case they are. Then you have these are the needles. Make sure they're not bent or twisted, and there's a spring in there. I'll take that apart, but I want to set that down gently. So this is the accelerator pump. When you dab on the throttle of a carburetor, it puts this down as a little squirt. And if you look right in here, see, hold your camera right in there. Oh, it didn't do it because of the top being off. But that'll, there it goes. Right there, you see them? So that you see that squirt? That's called the squirter. The accelerator pump. You check your rubber, it looks okay. This one's got a little bit of a bend to it. I don't know that the linkage is right. Yep, fixed it. Okay. Put that in my drawer. Now, what's the hard part here is if you guys come down here and you'll see all this rust in the bottom, this residue. I don't know if, let me get the light just right. There you go. You see all that rusty stuff? I probably should have started it, tried the old rag trick first, but I knew that there's going to be crap in it because we really haven't driven this car a lot this year. So I'm going to get some rags and then we'll dip that out of there. While she was cleaning the lens, I was thinking, so this is my vacuum to the distributor. It's not overly tight. You see that can be kind of pulled off, but not really. So that might be a consideration if I'm having a vacuum leak. I will show you how to check that after we put this back together. So, since the squirters were working here, the barrels were working there, the venturis were working there, I say let's put it back together and we'll run it a little bit and then we'll try the rag trick if that doesn't do it. So we kind of got it running now. It's up to temperature. I think the carburetor's shot. This is why. Let's spray this in here. We're going to use the rev up. I'll check the gasket. I think the throttle shaft wore out. Anyways, I think the throttle shafts are wore out, which has caused me a vacuum leak. I have to have the idle turned up. It won't idle. It's 35 years old. Duh. Of course, it's probably wore out. So I'll either have to get a new one or take it apart and we'll look at it more closely. That other one up there, maybe it's in better shape and I can make two into one. I really don't feel like spending 400 bucks on this, but you know, it is what it is. I'm not a big fan of buying these things used because guess what? They're wore out when you get them. So probably just get a new one. Okay, so it's the next day. You'll see I have the carburetor off the car now. Last night, or at least in the video, hopefully just prior to this, I was using this cleaner and you could hear the engine revving up. I had it set just like at 1100 RPM because it would not idle at all. So I set the idle up. Anyways, I had suspicion that it could be a gasket. Taking the gasket off, it's beautiful. There's no problem. If you get in close, Mary, you can see what I suspicion is. This is your throttle shaft. You see it's got a little bit of movement there. What happens is the air comes through here, creating some kind of a vacuum leak, not allowing it to run. I suspicion that's what's happening. I misspoke when I said this was a Weber earlier. It's actually a Carter made in the USA. It's an AFB, they call them, right there. I couldn't find the year on it. I don't know anything about it. It is now, Edelbrock is making those. And yesterday I'd mentioned the 400 bucks. I said, I don't want to spend 400 bucks. So I didn't. I spent 428 bucks. Went and bought a brand new one. It was on the shelf. Comes with all the stuff you need to install it. I've used one of these before on a 351 Windsor. New fuel filter, which you saw us put in a book. Very helpful. I'm hoping it wasn't open. I always like to see that there's tape or something that you know. But the guy says it wasn't. But if I had a nickel for every time I've been told a story, I'd have a lot of nickels. So let's take it out and compare it before I drop it. This one I went with the electric choke on it. I had the wire there. So let's pull it out of the box. Part of the motivation for doing this was I want to drive the car. And if it's not running and it won't idle worth a shoot, then you can't use it anywhere. Another thing that made me wanted to do it is this is now set up for the more modern fuels where this older carburetor wasn't. If you ever wanted to know what size these are, 1406, it's a 600 CFM electric choke. There's a 1405, there's a 140. Anyways, they have different sizes. Google it. It's essentially the same Carter as the Carter. We're going to need to plug this hole in the back because I have, and it's otherwise it's the same. The linkage should fit the same. Everything should be the same. This is how you adjust the idle. It has the same spots. It comes with the install kit with a new gasket. Let's go over to the car just for a minute and talk about that. Okay, so now, real quick, I have this off. If you want to look inside, Mary. This is a single plane intake manifold. You can see how clean it is. You can see the ports going right in. A dual plane will have a divider, and one side will be higher than the other. It does something to atomize the fuel. I don't know. This is what I've got on here. This vacuum port right here is the main branch with all the vacuum accessories. It's coming off intake vacuum. Well, that's the same as blocking that little deal in the back. So we'll do that. And like I say, this was the original square bore gasket that was on there. We have a new one to use. And I'm going to replace this vacuum line. I'm like an idiot and forgot while I was at the store to get a new piece of this. It's pretty hard, so I have a reason now to drive down there. Plus, I also wanted to check this vacuum advancer, make sure I'm not creating a vacuum there as well. And we should be able to test that by removing that and putting our finger out when we get it running. So I was looking on the YouTube. There's a section called analytics. We're learning about this, you know. Anyways, it kind of tells you who's watching, what time of day, not who specifically, but what time of day. And anyways, we noticed that there was 10 people watched the video of the rat rod from Canada. It doesn't say where, it just says Canada. I think we had 1 or 2 that were outside of Canada and the US, so from foreign country. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching, appreciate it. I love the support, no matter where it comes from. And I've been to Canada many times. We actually don't live very far away, but you know, it's a ways, but not too far away. Anyways, that should snap on there. I've got to put the spring on. That spring's on. So the only thing I don't have was the hose I was bragging about that I was going to go get a new one. I'll put that on, we'll start the engine, and then we'll check it with the thing.
We drive it down there with the old hose and drive it back with the new hose?
Yeah, maybe. Where did I put that?
The hose, or?
Yeah, the hose, eh? Hoser?
Oh yeah, the hoser. Isn't that more East Coast Canada? Oh, it's right here. You just threw it in the belt. That's what I thought.
I don't know, Mary. I'm talking about stuff we don't know.
Yeah. What our resources are red, green, and Canadian bacon. That's
Canadian Bacon, great movie.
It is a great movie. That's not copyrighted. We can talk about that.
I think it's copyrighted.
I know, but we're not like saying all the lines or.
Well, how about we say this? Let's give this thing a whirl. Why don't you let me get all the stuff off the here.
So it doesn't all shake into your belts and fans?
All right, car's washed. We're finally taking it on a drive. Hopefully it goes well. So ride along with us. Check it out. Okay, this is an old phone. A couple years, 2023. This is a bag phone. I found it at a yard sale for $2. This whole bottom part is the battery. When you had to make a phone call in the 1990s and 80s, you pick this thing up. Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. Wait. And then you'd get a thing called an answering machine. And then you'd say, call me back. But if they called you back, ooh, that costs money. Everything costs money. Anyways, I thought that was interesting. It was period correct. I like crap like that. It doesn't work. I put it in there. When I paid $2 for it, the guy says, you know, it doesn't work anymore. I'm like, that's perfect. That'll be perfect. Neither did the car then, so